Right then, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with the Border Gavaskar Trophy. It feels a while, almost 10 days to be specific, and all roads lead to Dharamshala, or should I say Indore, because there was, of course, a last minute little intervention by the BCCI. So all roads lead to the Holkar Stadium. Get that right. I should get that right. I'm just pulling, of course, you guys initially in this show that we're going to be doing with some great experts and the in-house that you guys normally see, the expert panel. I'm talking about Nikhil Popat, who joins us right now without his swanky headset, but all good, I'm presuming, with the pink background. A man driving from Delhi to Noida and then back and forth. We found him as well. Gurkirat Singh Gill joins us. And not to forget a man who thought he was looking kind of not good looking for the show is Somesh Agarwal, who's sitting faintly in the next room, I presume. Boys, talk to me about what's going to be happening in Indore, because there are five things I want to, of course, draw to your attention and the viewers as well. First one being KL Rahul. We're going to talk about him if he does get a replacement in Shubman Gill, or we're going to be talking about any other changes as well. Not to forget India's low order contributions. How important are they? And of course, Captain Steve Smith. I say Captain Steve Smith because, of course, Pat Cummins will be missing this third test. Who do I start with? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, pick up. No, I'm not even going to go that way. So I'll start with you because you're chuckling already. How do you look at this? 2-0 becoming 3-0, you think, or there's more to it?
Yeah, highly likely, but I'm expecting this test to be closer than the other two. Although the other two tests were actually, a lot closer than they ended up being. I mean, in the second test, I thought Australia were actually in the ascendancy. There are a couple of reasons I feel this might be closer of the lot is because I like Steve Smith, the captain, to be honest,
Hmm.
and he has the experience of captaining spinners a lot more than Pat Cummins, so that is going to work in Australia's favor. I've been uh, flagged for using the phrase "blessing in disguise" already, but in context of Australia's combination, what has transpired is actually a blessing in disguise for them because Warner looked out of sorts. I mean, uh, uh, one would have thought that he'd struggle facing spin against India in India, but he ended up being dismissed to Pacers on three occasions. So, and Head is much better play, mentally much better suited to counter attack the Pacers at the moment. So that, and I think Stark is if he plays, which I'm assuming he will, is a very good addition, especially if Australia want to somehow figure out how to dismiss India's lower order. So all these factors, putting everything together, I feel this test might be the closer than the other two that we've seen.
We'll come on to Captain Smith in a bit, but I want to start with an Indian point of view in terms of KL Rahul, because lots of people, of course, getting into sort of debates on Twitter. We've seen ex-cricketers go at each other, funnily enough, on Twitter. Gurkirat, KL Rahul clearly under the pump. What do you make of it? And do you think he will be rested? Do you think he'll be dropped? Talk to me about KL Rahul in particular, Gurkirat.
It's not only KL Rahul under the pump. In fact, those who've been backing him, they are also under the pump. Let's put it that way. Speaking from personal experience, but yeah, I think at this point of time there is going to be there's going to be a much more detailed and more intense discussion on his place in the 11 than the strategy that India should go in with to beat Australia, because let's put it that way, a lot of the frustrations that are coming with him are also a result of his own performances, and not only in test matches but across formats, because he's been he's been doing things the way he wants despite them not working out in other formats as well. And I think what happens is that when people continuously see the lack of results, they start to the, that frustration just keeps adding up. So if he doesn't play, then the important thing would be to see that what do India do when the WTC final comes, because if you now play Shubman Gill, and if he doesn't have three or four good innings, how many times India bat, then what do you open with him in England, or do you open with Chiteshwar Pujara there and then have someone else at number 3? That is something very important. So if India, if it, the for me the important thing has to be that if India play Shubman Gill in Indore, then they should ensure that Shubman Gill plays in Ahmedabad, and then even in the WTC final. Because if you want to play KL Rahul in WTC final, then you might as well play him in the next two test matches as well, and see how he's coming along. Because it's not going to help to play Shubman Gill two test matches and then play KL Rahul when you travel to England and play at Oval. So that is the bigger context I feel over here, rather than making the whole discussion about, okay, why is KL Rahul playing, or why is he being backed. And I also feel that a lot of the criticism also lacks context, because it doesn't make sense to draw comparisons with players who played for India 2 decades ago, when India also didn't have a similar bench strength, or when the game has changed, or to make or to draw an analogy or a comparison with Kuldeep is sitting out because there are three spin bowling all-rounders who are literally carrying the team, not only on the bowling front but also on the batting front. Kuldeep's not being left out because people feel that he's not going to perform, because there is no space, because of the combination issue. So that's there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I just have a counter question to ask to Gurkirat on what he suggested. Now, I firmly believe that irrespective of anything, KL Rahul should play in the WTC final purely because how he did in England last time around. So I don't get the point that why is the approach of horses for courses reserved for only bowlers? Because I mean, we've seen Ashwin not play a single test in English conditions last summer, and Ashwin literally walks into any team in world cricket at the moment. So why can't
Yep.
the same thing be applied for batters?
True.
Let's say if KL is struggling on confidence at the moment, let alone form, technique, उसकी तो हम बात ही नहीं करते. He's like a deer caught in the headlight sort of a situation for months now. So might as well give him a break and play Shubman Gill in the 2 games, and let KL Rahul and everyone know that he's going to be our opener in that one-off test against England. I mean, what's the harm in that?
True. It's actually a very interesting question, or a bit, because what Sumesh said is right. Because you rarely see horses for courses approach being followed for batters, and I've been trying to figure it out myself, that why is it that it doesn't get it right. Because that there must be some reason that all of us are collectively missing, or there is some logic to it which we have not been able to figure out. But it is a very pertinent and an interesting question, that why we can't do this. Also, to add on to what Somesh said, even if we see in the 3 innings that KL Rahul has batted, it's not that he's not been able to bat time, or he's not been able to stop balls. He batted out 70 balls in the first innings in Nagpur. He batted out a difficult time, I thought, in the first innings in Delhi as well, when the ball was doing something, when the ball was hard and new. So I feel a lot of his issues are, and this is something that Nikhil had brought up as well when we were discussing the first test match, that he's able to play out the first 30 balls, which is the most difficult time. It's just that he's not been able to build on from there. So it's so on that front, if we think about it, given it's England, and the value of playing out the new ball is important, it's not the worst suggestion, or it's not something which is not plausible to open with KL when you go to play the World Test Championship final in England.
Yeah. Let's get to Nick's then, because he's been quite in the corner. And Soman Gurkirat makes some good points, Nick. So essentially, are we looking at 6 innings that KL Rahul can save his test match career, if you put it down bluntly? Because since 2022, like we're featuring an article before, you can catch it in the cricket.com page as well, all the stats, he averages 15.9 since 2022, and a guy like KL Rahul, that just doesn't sit right.
Yeah, I think it is what is going to be these 2 tests and the WTC final. Again, India not looking so far right, but Rohit did mention that they wanted a green deck in Ahmedabad
Yep.
to prepare for the WWTC final. So that will also give us enough idea that how is the team looking to shape up, because as of now the team hasn't had the best of time with the top order. Rohit has been the single-handed person who's looked anywhere stable in the top four, including top four, because Iyer has just come back after an injury break. So I think batting time will be important for all four of them. And with KL, yes, I think the 6 innings are kind of a make or break before maybe he gets an extended break. To answer to the query that I think Somesh rightly put out, there is horses for courses for batters, which is why Renshaw played and Head did not. That Australia thought that no, these conditions are not good for Travis said, let's put Renshaw in based on process for curses past data. But the thing with which I feel could be a reason is you don't need more than one ball for a batter to get out or not be part of the game at all, which is not always the case with the bowler. So you can take a Murphy on a spinning deck and still be happy even if he gives you just 2 wickets, because he's going to add value to the number of overs that he is going to bowl, which can help the others, have a better plan. The same can't always be said about the batter. So it has to be very strategically done that if Renshaw gets a first bowler, how are you going to justify that? That okay, we played him because he's good for those conditions. So I think that could be the one of the reasons why they don't opt for horses for coaches for batters. India did try that. They played Vihari only away and not at home because they knew that they wanted that
Extra
defense
batters.
or extra batter option away, which is not the case at home. They were happy to play the extra spin all rounder. So I think it's there, but not in that capacity because maybe baseball will bring it here. Who knows?
Yeah, I think just 2 points to what Nikhil said. I mean, first about Renshaw. I mean, I understand it's sort of horses for courses, but the data that they are comparing him to is from 6 years ago, and the data with KL Rahul is just last series, and that too 4 good tests. And the other point on Hanuma Vihari was just the fact that I think Ravindra Jadeja, India felt that he's a good enough number 5 in Indian condition, but not so much when they travel abroad. But I think, I mean, really, I mean, got to feel for the bowlers who, just it's assumed that they are going to miss certain tests, but batters just then or they're just selected because of what's that word, hierarchy, or I
It
don't
is a
know,
bowler's game. It's not a batting.
incumbency.
No,
Just
absolutely. I
to
think
just to finish that KL Rahul chat again, one thing that I would just want to throw to the panel itself before we wrap the KL Rahul topic up, something that almost everyone is saying, that there is nothing wrong with his technique. It's all in the mind. Now, I was just looking at strike rates. Rohit is striking at 60. Aksar is striking in mid 50s. Even Khwaja, who I think at times has looked that a batter who can actually score runs, is striking at 60s. KL Rahul strike rate is 33. So I mean, and I think this is something that Kohli, when he was captain, used to mention a lot, that in conditions like this, there's always a ball around the corner with your name on it. So I think, in my opinion, KL Rahul, one thing that he's done exceptionally wrong at times is just being a little too circumspect, and that's just not in Test. That's just like cricket across formats.
does
No,
that kind of
he's
mean
gone
of
into
his
a shell. He's
mindset?
gone into a shell. He's gone into a shell when it's not required on more than a few occasions across formats. You look
But
at
why
his
is
strike
that?
rate.
Is
You
that why
you you
vice
look at.
captaincy?
I think it's also got to, it's a multitude of factors. I think it began with him not being certain about his place in the limited overs, and then it stretched to, the franchisee not doing well, and then, I think it just became a part of his muscle memory, or his overall game, that he knows that every time he goes out, he needs to bat in a certain manner, or try and, get a score, rather than make a score that is or rather than play a cameo. You see
Yeah.
at his you see his strike rate as an opener in ODIs as well. It's around 79.
70,
And you
70,
see
yeah.
his, yeah, and you see his strike rate as a middle order batter at number 5. It's over 100. So I just feel it's just a case of him getting too circumspect on occasions, because uh, in the 3 innings that Kohli has batted in these innings as well, everyone, even though I couldn't watch that innings, but everyone was saying that in Delhi, in the first innings when he came out to bat, he was, even though he was, very solid in his defense, he was still looking at opportunities to score. And it's something that I've spoken at length when we talk about Kohli's game in test matches as well, that if the more he goes into a shell, the difficult it gets for Kohli as well to score runs. Because you look at Kohli's best innings across test matches, even in the most toughest of conditions for batting, whether that is Perth 2018, Edgbaston 2018, or Johannesburg 2018, he's looked to score. There is something about batters looking to score who just tend to get those deliveries where they can find those boundaries. And sometimes when you're just looking to defend or play out the bowling, you tend to even edge a half volley to slips, because you just the makeup in the mind is such, you don't
Mm.
expect the ball to come in a manner where you can look for boundaries or look for an opportunity to score, and sometimes you're caught napping. And as a batsman, this is a game of instincts. If instinctively you are not prepared to score some runs, when the opportunity presents itself, you may not be able to take it. And I think that
Mm.
is always the difference between someone who's a very good batter and someone who's potentially a good batter.
Mm. And I
Opening
think
point.
I'm
Sure,
not
Joe, as well.
I'm not a sports psychologist, but in my opinion, it's more of, I think it's about him taking himself a lot seriously rather than just enjoying the sport.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to make of it, right? Whether it's a mental bit, whether it's what Gurkirat spoke about, just the fact that he lacks confidence right now as a bloke. Hopefully, marriage helps him in that regard. But look, enough of KL Rahul. Let's, of
on,
course.
on the marriage bit on the marriage bit, Somesh can share his own experiences.
Okay, let's swiftly move on, guys, because there's a huge host of things to talk about. Before that, let's quickly just pay attention to all the comments coming through. Really appreciate it on this, what is it, Tuesday afternoon that we're doing this particular live. SJ going on to say what could be the Aussie team combination tomorrow. We'll get to that. Chachant, of course, being noisy, saying Australia, Kakela, oh baby, whatever that means. Pranav Anand going on to say it looks like it'll be a better batting pitch in Indore, at least for the batting team first. I know it's very left field, but if Australia can bat first, can India consider Kuldeep and KL and open Pujara? We'll get to the tactics, we'll get to the teams and the conditions as well. But I just want to, of course, showcase a few fresh faces in the comments below. So keep your comments coming through, and we'll, of course, take them. My next big question for the panel is how much of a difference India's lower order has been making, not just this series, but if we do eventually win the World Test Championship, boys, do you think it's the lower order which will really kind of take all the limelight? Nix, I'll start with you here.
Mostly, I think it'll take a lot to do that at the Oval. Again, maybe we are all just very mentally prepared that the way Aksar and everybody is getting unused, you'll see Mitchell Stark, Pat Cummins not being used, and Cam Green taking 5 first at the Oval, which is very much possible. But again, not jinxing that. But see, it's understated. I feel India's lack of runs from the top order, percentage-wise, as well. Uh, of course, it's well documented, but I think it's probably taken for granted in terms of amount of times the lower order has saved. And it's not just the saving, it's how they've played. You look at how Aksar played the last game, you look at how Jadeja played the previous. They don't look as much trouble as much the top order does. Of course, they are facing a slightly older ball, but conditions are still tough. The other team is still finding it hard to score. So it's the ease. I mean, Aksar Patel in the 2 tests that he has played, he's probably been the second best batter after Rohit. So it's the ease and the control in which they've played, especially in the subcontinent, which you think that they'll be able to do better, which is fair. But I think WTC final will be a completely different game of luck and a lot of other things. So if they win, I think these three all rounders will definitely be credited. But I think let's not go there too early. I mean, let's just wait for that.
Okay, so talk to me about this batting depth that we have, because even if the top order doesn't fire, invariably it's Ashwin, Jadeja, and Akshar who bail us out. And my follow-up question to that is, if we do, of course, go with all three of them, dare I say, in the WC final, which is not really the right choice, I know, but their batting just keeps producing and producing. So how important are they in terms of just test match cricket for India? And is it because that they don't have any pressure because they have anyway seen the top order collapse from time to time?
See, there are multiple factors. First and foremost, I feel the advantage that India's lower order has is the lefties. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the same advantage Rishabh Pant has. I mean, if you look at all the premium bowlers in the world, I mean, if you look at even Jimmy Anderson's average, his average against righties versus lefties, it's a big gulf. So that's one thing that works their way. And second is, of course, there is no pressure on them to. So they're already in the team because on their primary skill, and it's just their secondary skill that they possess. So there is no fear of failure, which might affect others in the top. India's top 5, 6, if they're not batting or wicket keeping or not the skipper, they might not. They won't even. They're fighting for the spot in every test, which is not true with any of these. And this is where the difference of mindset comes into picture.
Yeah.
And maybe a case of the opposition team taking things a little too lightly, that Kohli gaya, Rohit gaya, sab gaya, kuch nahi bacha.
Yeah.
But maybe, I mean, it shouldn't happen from what we have seen. And regarding a question on the WTC final, I mean, we'll be very lucky if two of them feature in the 11, let alone three.
No, that is true. Gurkit, let me ask you this. Does Jadeja, Akshar, and maybe Ashwin fit into other World Cricket 11s but higher up the batting order? Are they that good? Or, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is the proof in the pudding with all the numbers?
Oh, Jadeja is now reached a stage where he can play as a specialist bowler, specialist batter. If he doesn't bowl, he can play as a specialist batter. He can bat number five, even overseas. And you have to look him defend on the fourth stump. The line that a lot of left-handers struggle with is a right arm pacer or a right arm seamer coming over the wicket and bowling in that fourth stump channel. Something that Robinson was consistently doing in that India England series, and even Anderson. And Robinson did get punt out that way two or three times, barring the oval test. So uh, Jadeja has become very good when it comes to leaving the ball on the fourth stump. So Jadeja can actually play as a pure batter at number five or number six if India want in the future, and if he's not bowling. For any of Akshar or Ashwin to play, Jadeja will have to play as a specialist batter. Let's put it that way, because I don't think India are moving away from that template of four fast bowling options. Especially especially given how they lost in that last WTC final. Even though I don't think that had much to do with their bowling, it had a lot more to do with their batting. But it playing four seamers gave them success, and I think they will stick to it. The other thing that I think India's 6, 7, 8 or 7, 8, 9 actually also benefit from when playing in India is that the SG ball, when it goes soft, it really makes life easier. I'm not saying that they're not able batters, because if you're consistently pulling it off, you are doing something special. And Akshar's batting has grown leaps and bounds since the beginning of 2022 in all formats. He's scoring runs for India in ODIs, in T20, so he's definitely worked on his batting. Ashwin from the beginning always had that skill and the gift of timing. You saw that. Everyone say, even I felt it, that there is a bit of VVS Lakshman in Ashwin, especially when he's playing that on drive. So he always had the talent. In between, his form with the bat had completely gone. But I think post Sydney, in that test match where he batted a session and more with Vihari to draw that test match, I think he's now started to become a tighter batter once again. Where he's starting to trust his defense a lot more. And Jadeja as a batter has continuously, like I said, grown from Oval 2018, and now he can play as a pure test batter. I think away from home as well, he's averaging more than 40 plus with the bat, and that's brilliant. So it, this is a holy trinity of Indian all-rounders. We don't know when we'll get to see it again. And as long as they are there, we should celebrate them, because Jadeja is now 34. I think he turned 34 last year. So we don't know how long he's going to play. And given the amount of injuries he's had in 2 years, not even sure if he'll be continuously be able to play all three formats after the World Cup this year. So we should just look to celebrate this holy trinity of Indian all-rounders as long as we can.
Yeah, I think that's
You get your header, Avnish. This is
No,
what I think.
exactly. I was just thinking about that, right? The holy trinity that India possessed, which is toppled Australia not once, not twice, but thrice. Right. Speaking of
not
Australia,
not only not only Australia. I mean, I was once checking this. uh,
sure.
Anderson and Broad, when they have played together, they have lost more test matches in England than what Ashwin and Jadeja have lost in India. I think
Hmm.
Ashwin and Jadeja have only been a part of two losses in India, which is the test match in 2017 in Pune, and I don't think, in the 2021 Test match that India lost to England, Jadeja wasn't a part of the squad. So there's only been two Test matches, I think, post that 2012 series that India have lost, and Ashwin's been part of two of them, and Ashwin and Jadeja both played one together. And Anderson and Broad together have lost more Test matches in England. And I'm not saying that it is just down to the impact of these two. Uh, Before 2019, India's top order was also doing quite well. Pujara was scoring a lot of runs at home. Kohli was doing it. There was Murli Vijay who was doing it. Even KL Rahul had very good one season at home. So there have been a lot of batters doing the bulk of the scoring as well. But this is this top these three all rounders have really made sure that it's just to compete with India. in test matches and take the test match to day 5 is something which is an achievement, because in the last 18 test matches that India have played at home, India have won 16 of them, and they have won 11 of them inside 3 days. One test match which was the two test match, I think there was one test match that they lost to England, which went to the 5th day. Against New Zealand in Kanpur, it was a drawn, it was drawn on 5th day, and then in one test match out of those 16 that India won actually went to the 5th day, which was, I think, against South Africa. I think it was the first test in Pune or Nagpur. I'm not sure of that, but only three out of the last 18 test matches in India have gone to day 5. That just tells you how strong this team is in their own conditions. And in the last 18, 19, or 20 years that I have seen test cricket, I have not seen this much domination at home by any team.
It's some good points and numbers you pull out, Gurkirat, in terms of just to elude to Ashwin and Jadeja and Team India's dominance at home in the last decade or so. Now, of course, Steve Smith is going to be leading Australia, and I know he led in that one-off Ashes test when I think similar things happened with Cummins when he was out with an injury, but he thrives as a captain, of course, when he's batting. And so mentioned it. We'll, of course, focus on Smith's numbers in the ticker below. But do you think he can really make a difference this time around? I think he's spoken in the pre-match press conference saying that how he needs to tackle Ashwin and Jadeja, which is basically play them much more slowly, in the sense take as much of time out of the game as possible. Is that a good way to go about playing Ashwin and Jadeja? So,
I think what he said was from a perspective of how they capitulated. Everyone just kept sweeping, and in both tests, I mean, they just lost. They nearly went all out in a session, right? I think he's talking more from that perspective, that if there is they have to somehow figure out a way to arrest the collapse. But if they have to win it, I mean, it has to come down to scoring runs. One of the things that has really bothered me about Australia is they seemed, while preparing for Indian spinners, they've forgotten that India have very good pace attack as well. I mean, them getting, they both Khwaja and Warner almost felt not even prepared कि भाई bouncer भी आ सकता है. So I'm actually looking forward to how will they tackle India's quicks in the next test, because I think with Indore and the shorter boundaries, I think if India persists with bowling short up front and if the ball is not moving, I think if I'm in the Australian camp, I would want the batters to actually try those pulls and hooks and get some runs on the board rather than just try fishing around. So that's
and
one way. Smith, I think, the failures would have only made him hungry. A few times in this series, he has gotten out to good balls and good plans, but that dismissal was a rare error from Smith's end, where he actually played a bad shot, and that will be on his mind. And now he's leading. His numbers as a captain are, I think, better, if that is even possible in Smith's case, than when he's not leading a side. So I'm actually expecting a Smith masterclass, and head up top instead of Warner is anyway a positive for Australia, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys read Shubh's pre-match piece on our website right now, it'll probably allude to the same points. Next, let me ask you this, just to make it a little halka. Smith in your fantasy team is a captain pick because he's captain in reality. That makes for a good sense from a fantasy pick, or you're not going down that path?
Too much to do when you have three great all-rounders who are contributing with both departments. So I think much likelier to take that risk, even as a vice captain with Travis said, than Smith. See, Smith will definitely score one big one. I don't know if it's next test or the next one. But even from a fantasy angle, when you have an all-rounder who's likely to take 5 in each and probably give you 50 also with the bat, you would always go with that option. Very interested to see how Smith uses his resources in terms of bowling changes. I felt in both the first test, Pat hasn't had the best of time with the bowling changes and how he's used the pacers. So mentioned the point about using the pacers upperly. Cummins bowled very less, even in the match. Even in the partnership versus Akshar and Ashwin, I don't think Cummins used himself much. Did not bowl the short ball that has been causing trouble to the Aussies in India, which is surprising. But Smith, in that sense, I think has more options to his arsenal that he'll bring to the table. So I think in that sense, I feel India will be a bit more tested. So let's see.
Okay, Steve Smith. Gukia, I'm not going to ask you about Steve Smith. In fact, I'm going to ask you about the pitch and conditions, right, at the Holkar. And I'll, of course, put it out for all the viewers below as well. Remember, it's just hosted two tests, one in 2016 against New Zealand and one against Bangladesh in 2019. Now, the theme in those test matches was bat first and bat big, pretty much. Do you think it's going to be history repeating itself on the third time, this time at the Holkar?
Yeah, I'd like India to win the toss and bat first. And in that first test that the stadium hosted, uh, this is something that you'd like to hear. Virat scored a double hundred. Ajinkya Rahane scored his career best, which was 188, and then Pujara scored 100 in the second innings. So, and the other test match that happened, I think Mayank Agarwal scored a double. So it's been one of the good batting pitches. So hopefully, if India bat first, they bat big. They put on a score of at least 400 to 450, because you know uh, it's something that we've not seen a lot happen in recent times in test matches in India. Earlier, test matches in India used to have a template that if the team wins the toss, they bat big, they bat till you know probably till tea on the second day, or just a little after lunch on second day, with at least one batter scoring a ton. That hasn't happened, so I'd like that to happen, because and no prize for guessing, I'd like Kohli to have a big score, because uh, everyone knows that he needs a ton in test matches. He needs some runs in test matches, especially going into the WTC. Even you won't mind, this time the top four doing the bulk of the scoring, and letting the lower order, just cool their heels in the dressing room, with the top four scoring loads of runs. Hopefully, India win the toss, because so far India have not had the luck with the tosses. And I think if India win the toss, and if India do bat big on day one, with wherein they are around 300 or 320 for four or five, I think that would more or less likely ensure that Australia will have a very little chance of equaling the series, because from that point, I sense a very difficult comeback. Also, continuing on what Nikhil has said, even in Nagpur, when the partnership was brewing between Akshar and Shami, Akshar was taking on the spinners. He was cutting Nathan Lyon from the stumps with the ball staying low. You didn't see Cummings come and bowl. So hopefully, with Stark coming in, and Smith using the pacers better, there's a little more. I still think there's enough gulf in quality, but I do feel that if Smith captains well, and brings about the bowling changes which are needed, at least the battle will be a lot more closer than the first two test matches.
Okay, guys, quickly then let's wrap up by talking about teams and tactics in terms of what's going to happen in the third test. Dare I say, will Australia make changes? Because we saw them just go with one pacer home, which is ridiculous thinking. I'm surely thinking Indore will be assisting the Pacers more, that they can shoehorn maybe a Stark, maybe a Bolin, given the pitch over there. How do you see it?
I think Stark will play for sure. So Stark comes in for Cummins. If Green is fit, I'm not aware of the latest happenings there. But if he's fit, he comes in for Renshaw and then head for Warner. I think that's it. All three spinners keep their place in the team. They bat deep because Stark is definitely, I think, better suited for these conditions than Cummins, if I can say. Both with bat and ball. So
So essentially, Cameron Green becomes your second pacer,
yeah.
and you're happy with that?
Yeah, I mean they have three spinners, four if you add Head, because throughout the series, every game I make a prediction that Head is going to take more wickets than Lion, but ultimately हो नहीं रहा वो, but देखते हैं.
but,
Next,
but, but I do think that if Green's not going to bowl, then Australia do need a second pacer, because Indore also has a little bit of carry and a little bit of pace. It's not
so
it's not a
who
slow
then?
pitch like
Lance Morris?
no.
He's the
If in that scenario, if there is pace and bounce, why not play Boland? Boland was very accurate in the first test match.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah, the fact that they might actually go in with those three spinners continues to either puzzle Australian fans back
See,
home
one thing,
or
one thing that Australia also need to understand and realize is that uh, they're not winning a test match without taking 20 wickets. And I think if they need to take 20 wickets, they probably need to play five bowlers.
Hmm.
And they must, tactically or on the drawing board, make sure that they are not playing bowlers who can bat, uh, at the expense of bowling quality and at bowling depth. The onus of scoring runs has to be on the top four. You can't try and replicate the template that India have been, because India are also not going in every test match thinking, okay, we'll have the 7, 8, 9 bailers out with the bat. The thinking is definitely that the top 4 or 5 score. It's just happening by default that you have those all-rounder scoring runs, because it's very difficult to try and create that template and then sustain it. Australia must play, if they really want to win, they should play their 5 best bowlers and top 6 batters, because without that, even if they play an extra batter, how are they going to get 20 wickets? Without taking 20 wickets, they're not winning a test match.
It's some things to think about, really. Of course, you guys can catch all the coverage on cricket.com, the live blog and the analysis, and we'll be back here at 5:30 post the day one play. Just before I finish with the boys, anything about India, any changes? Because lots of comments have been coming in that direction. I know that the Gill KL thing we spoke about. Any bowlers to be rested, dare I say, Nick, Som?
No, I don't think so. It's a red soil wicket from what we hear so far, and it should spin. And it should also do reverse. It should also reverse a bit. So I think that will possibly just keep the maybe Siraj will get to bowl more, which is something he will look forward to. Which is also where I feel Stark will be very critical versus the tail or the lower order that India has. So I don't expect changes from India. It should be unchanged, and the changes that we mentioned for Australia will happen. I don't see ball and play. 3 spinners and Stark.
Okay, why change something which is not broken? So we'll end this with you, because one of your top fans in Subodh Chavan has asked you this question: which Indian batter will score ton in the third test, my friend? 3 seconds to answer it.
Rohit Sharma.
It was there ever any doubt in this man's ability to predict a winner apart from Rohit? Look,
I want someone else other than the 3 spinners to win the man of the series, because it's becoming a routine now.
Okay, let's call that all.
By the way, if Ashwin does win the man of the series, I think he'll tie the record with Jack Callis. I think Muralidharan has 11, Ashwin has 9. If Ashwin wins it, he'll be on par with Jack Callis with 10 man of the series awards.
I mean, keep that. You heard that first in cricket.com. It's Kukirat, of course, just showing off his cricket knowledge. And we love it. We absolutely love it on this Tuesday afternoon. We'll end with a couple of comments just to, of course, make you feel great at home. Y'all love me saying, hope KL plays and scores some runs. The Outcast having to say, I want India to win so that we can have a green pitch in Ahmedabad. All your particular comments are most welcome on cricket.com. It's been a terrific 38 minutes that I've chatted with these guys about the third test preview. You guys can rewind it and review it and check it out on the app as well for later. But thanks so much, Kukirat and Nix, for making your presence felt. The sun is setting here in Bangalore, and the sun is set already in Australia in what's been a really boring Border Gavaskar Trophy. Hopefully it's a 4-0. Hopefully there's a green pitch in Ahmedabad, and hopefully there's a dress rehearsal in Ahmedabad before the WTC. I can rumble on and on, but I'll choose not to. I'm Abneesh Hegde. It's time to get out of here. We'll see you guys soon.